Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a truly fascinating source, one that promises to unlock a very specific path to financial success. We're deep diving into insights from a YouTube video by Dan Martell titled The Only Skill You Need to Make Your First $10M. Martell kicks things off with, well, quite a bold claim. He says he taught 100 kids one skill that almost guarantees their first million, and then he immediately backs it up with his own story, going from dead broke at 24 to a millionaire at 27. Pretty impressive. He also mentions he's helped over, 10,000 business owners get rich and is now on this mission to make young millionaires.
Yeah, and our mission for this deep dive is really to distill what Martell's claiming. Not just summarize, but, identify the core skills he believes are essential. And maybe more importantly, why he thinks they're so powerful. He suggests there's this one main skill, but then there are also 3 other skills that if you stack them, it's a guarantee. So we'll unpack each one, try to understand the practical takeaways, and maybe the deeper implications for you listening.
Okay, let's definitely unpack this. I'm curious to see what truly stands out for you as we navigate these different pathways to building wealth he lays out. So first up, Martell asserts that a business officially starts, not with the legal stuff or a website, but the moment you sell something to a stranger. That first transaction, it's pretty fundamental, isn't it? He then breaks selling down into 3 crucial S's.
It really is fundamental. What's insightful there is how he just strips away all the, modern distractions, the fancy website, the Instagram feed, and cuts right to the core. A business starts and survives on that first actual sale to a stranger.
Yes.
It's a powerful reminder, almost brutal, that until you've actually exchanged value for money, everything else is just prep work. It's not the business itself. Really makes you rethink the order you do things in, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So the first S he dives into is sell yourself. He talks about watching people who say the right words, but you can tell they don't genuinely believe it. Maybe they have twitchy eyes, or they're too aggressive, or it sounds like they're just reading a script. But then you see these confident people. They might not talk fast or use fancy words, but they exude this certainty. You believe, they believe, and that's what gets you to buy. He literally says, if he feels you haven't sold yourself, he's not buying.
Yeah, and building on that sell yourself point, for listeners who are maybe already deep in sales or influence, it really underlines that authenticity isn't just some buzzword. It's actually like a measurable part of conversion, and makes you wonder, how do you genuinely foster that conviction? Not just act it out, especially when things are uncertain in your own business. It suggests that internal belief isn't just a nice to have, it's a hard requirement.
Totally. Then the second S is signal. This is all about body language, how you present yourself. He uses this really vivid example, door-to-door sales. He contrasts someone standing way too close, looking kind of pushy, with someone else who steps back a bit, maybe holds a coffee cup, looks relaxed, like they're just walking around and trying to help people out. That coffee cup style, he says, it communicates chill, openness. And he claims that will make you more money because you're signaling seriousness and confidence. Or I guess the lack of it. It's almost subliminal.
Right. And connecting that signaling to the bigger picture, it's not just about the first impression, is it? It taps into that unspoken question a buyer always has. Okay, can I trust this person after the sale? Will they actually take care of me?
Right.
That relaxed, confident signal implicitly answers yes. It assures competence, serviceability, anything less, any awkwardness. It just undermines that trust. It's basically a masterclass in how nonverbals dictate perceived reliability.
Makes sense. And then the third S is secure. Basically, getting the commitment, asking for the sale. Martell even admits he used to do all this work in a sales conversation, put in the effort, but then get nervous and just forget to ask for the order. He claims most salespeople are simply scared to ask for the sale. That fear of rejection is huge. He gives an example of someone on his team who makes 3 times more offers than anyone else. And guess what? They make more sales. It sounds so simple, but it's incredibly difficult for a lot of people.
Oh, it's a classic sales paradox, isn't it? The fear of rejection often leads people to reject themselves before the customer even gets a chance. Martell's conclusion there that most people reject themselves before the buyer ever rejects them, that's potent. It really shines a light on that internal psychological barrier that stops so many people from closing the deal. The final hurdle is often in your own head.
Yeah, that self-rejection thing is powerful. Okay, so moving from sales, his emphasis on telling stories, not just facts, for communication is super insightful. And speaking of influence and connection, that leads us right into his next key skill. Because getting your message across isn't just what you say, but also who you say it to and who you surround yourself with. He highlights clear, concise communication as this powerful skill that'll open more doors than your degree ever will.
Hmm.
And he's quite open about his own journey, admitting his first talk was a complete mess and that, we all start horrible.
That's such a foundational point, isn't it? The journey from horrible to pro is where the real learning happens. It's not about starting perfect. And he outlines these 3 steps to effectively speak like a pro, which really focus on the process, not just like innate talent.
Right. First step, embrace the nerves. He says he still gets nervous before videos are going on stage. Why? Because he cares. His mantra, just serve. Make it about the audience, not about him.
Mhm.
He believes when you embrace those nerves but focus on serving, people actually feel that positive energy. It's a really neat reframing.
It is. And his second point, which he puts very bluntly as, know your shit, well, that really underpins everything, doesn't it? He's saying people often get nervous and stumble precisely because they're talking about stuff they've never done. They haven't earned the right, so to speak. So Martell really hammers home the importance of volume and reps required. He brings up Steph Curry shooting 500 free throws before games, Kobe's 3-a-day practices. Then he drops that powerful line, winners lose more than losers, and even advises parents, let your kids fail or they'll become losers. It's a real no-nonsense call for putting in the work, for practical mastery.
Wow. Winners lose more than losers. That is powerful. And kind of counterintuitive. It completely flips how we usually think about failure, doesn't it?
Right.
Okay, and the third step, tell stories, not facts. He believes people don't remember exactly what you say, but they absolutely remember how you made them feel. Yeah. So the best speakers, they tell emotional, heartfelt stories, stories that explain why they know what they know. Using stories connects with the heart, gets the audience reflecting. It's the difference between, a dry lecture and something compelling.
This really taps into the psychology of memory and persuasion. Facts hit the logical brain, right? But stories, especially emotional ones, engage different parts of the brain entirely. They're far more memorable, far more impactful. It's just how we naturally process the world. So the skill, storytelling, it amplifies everything else. Even the best idea needs to be communicated in a way that actually sticks.
Absolutely. And that brings us neatly to his third skill, connecting and networking. This one's rooted in the idea that fundamentally, your life is a byproduct of your environment, and the people in your environment are going to dictate your success.
Mhm.
Martell shares a personal story here about moving back to his hometown in his early 30s and having this realization, I don't know other millionaires.
It's a pretty candid admission, isn't it? He realized he had to actively, consciously rebuild his network. So what did he do? He organized an event, basically a dinner with a chef, a speaker, and he cold called a handful of entrepreneurs, people he wanted to connect with, to curate this 80-person room, many he'd never even met. He called it the world's largest blind date, and it worked. It led to business investments, partnerships, friendships, and that insight he shares. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. That really captures the growth mindset behind it all. Proactive networking.
So how does he suggest you actually go about upgrading your network? First, he says, think of events. Events give you a built-in reason to reach out to these really successful people. His advice, create a platform. Like build a stage, invite people to speak, coordinate the conversation. You become the central hub. He realized in San Francisco, it was the event organizers who were the real network builders. It's a smart reversal of the usual, can I pick your brain ask?
Exactly. Instead of asking for something, which can feel like you're taking up their time, you create value for them. You offer them a platform. This gives them exposure, sure, but crucially, it positions you as a connector, a facilitator. That naturally builds goodwill, access, reciprocal relationships. It's really a masterclass in offering value first to build that influential network.
Makes total sense. His second suggestion, hyper-personalized email. And he stresses this is not about generic cold templates. He tells a story about his friend Chris messaging him years ago. Chris referenced specific things he'd seen Martell post, like on Facebook stories or recent YouTube video. Real details. Chris was direct. Said he didn't know Martell but offered a quick, 3-minute way he could help his business. Martell replied. Chris delivered. And apparently, Chris went on to make him tens of millions of dollars and even helped edit his book. Just goes to show, doing a little homework first can pay off massively.
Yeah, in today's world with overflowing inboxes, the core insight here is you cut through all that noise by proving you've actually done the work. Show you genuinely know and respect the person you're messaging. It signals you're not just blasting out spam, you're thoughtful, strategic. It's about building a micro connection before you even hit send. That's what gets the reply.
Good point. And the third way he suggests is to host the meetup, even if it's virtual. He talks about organizing these AI expert roundtables on Zoom. Simple concept. He just scrolls social media, finds people in his target area, AI in this case, and invites them to these informal lunch meetings. Everyone introduces themselves, shares what they're working on, helps each other out. He really emphasizes how super informal, super easy they are. Often his team runs them, so he can just show up and connect. Takes the pressure off.
What's really compelling about that approach is the low barrier to entry combined with a potentially high return. It's casual, it's value-driven, it's not a formal pitch session, so it naturally fosters more genuine connections. And it seems like a pretty scalable way to build a relevant network without the intensity of trying to do constant one-on-one cold outreach.
Yeah, definitely scalable. Okay, this brings us to what Martel calls the final most important skill, the master skill that kind of amplifies all the others. And that is content creation and storytelling. He notes his own recent surge in popularity online, but he's quick to clarify he's been doing YouTube religiously for almost 10 years. It took him 8 years just to hit 100K subscribers before things really ramped up. So definitely not an overnight success, however it might look now.
Right, and it fundamentally comes back to his belief that attention is the new oil, and that the ability to tell stories so well that people stop scrolling and actually lean in, that's the future. He flat out identifies AI and personal brand as the two most important bets for the future, basically saying future wealth. It lies in using tech to capture and hold attention through really compelling narratives.
So how do you actually cultivate this master skill? First, he says, study the best. He suggests actively turning your social media feed into like a masterclass in a university of growth. How? By deliberately engaging with content related to your passion. His example.
Sure.
If you like AI and UFC, search AI UFC. Then use FYP for a U page in the comments. You're basically telling the algorithm, show me more of this. It turns mindless scrolling into targeted learning, which is actually a brilliant hack for today.
That's such a practical way to harness those algorithms, isn't it? Instead of just passively consuming, you actively direct them for personalized learning. It's a real shift from just being a consumer to becoming a student of what actually works, what grabs attention.
Definitely. Second point, create daily. He highlights that most people can't be consistent. So just the act of creating daily already sets you apart. It's all about volume over perfection. Iterating quickly. He insists it doesn't take a long time to get good. You just have to start to get good. It sounds almost liberating, doesn't it? Especially when everything online seems to push for polished, perfect content. What's a psychological shift needed to actually embrace that kind of rapid-fire iteration?
That's a great question. I think it's a fundamental mindset change. Moving from seeking external validation for each piece to prioritizing internal momentum. He's basically advocating for an agile approach to content creation. Rapid prototyping, get quick feedback, constantly improve. Don't get stuck in analysis paralysis trying to make one perfect thing. It's about building the muscle of creation, not just a portfolio of finished masterpieces. And trusting that the process itself, the reps, will sharpen your craft over time.
Building the muscle, I like that. And Martel's third piece of advice flows right from that. Get feedback. He uses Mr. Beast as a prime example. Started at 11, posted 100 videos with basically no traction initially, but he just published and published and published, constantly trying, tweaking, iterating, eventually got addicted and obsessed. Right. Martel just keeps emphasizing, reps equal results. The process he describes. Create a video, try to make it 1% better. Post it. Then look at the analytics, the retention graphs. Ask for feedback. Read the comments. The key, he says, is absolutely avoid posting and ghosting. You have to engage with the results.
Yeah, that iterative feedback loop is just crucial for mastery in pretty much anything, not just content. It's like applying the scientific method to your own creative development. Test, measure, learn, repeat. It pushes you beyond just doing the thing to actively optimizing it. And that's where the real growth happens. It's the difference between just putting stuff out there and actually getting better.
Right. Closing the loop. And finally, his last piece of advice for content. Pick one format. He warns that most people make the mistake of trying to do all things at the same time. Short form, long form, podcasts, tweets. And that just leads to overwhelm and inconsistency. So he says, pick the one format you think you would love to do and you would do it for a really long period of time. His philosophy, dedicate a decade. He actually asserts that 10 years of all-in on one content format guarantees you'll make $1 million. Now that's a huge commitment. For many listening, that might sound incredibly daunting, maybe even unrealistic. Do you think that level of intense focus is truly necessary for everyone? Or is there maybe a risk of burnout with that kind of rigid focus?
That's a really crucial question to ask. While his own results clearly demonstrate the power of that sustained, focused effort, it does paint a very specific, almost singular path to success. And let's be real, not everyone has the luxury, or maybe even the desire, to commit a full decade solely to one content format. For some, that could absolutely lead to burnout or maybe missing other opportunities that pop up along the way. It's a powerful philosophy for sure, but perhaps it's one that needs adapting to individual circumstances and temperaments rather than being taken as like a strict universal rule. The core idea of focused commitment is key, but maybe the decade itself is more of a metaphor for unwavering dedication than a literal 10-year sentence for everyone.
That's a good perspective. A metaphor for dedication. Okay, what a deep dive into Dan Martell's 4 foundational skills for hitting that $1 million mark, and likely beyond. From the psychology of selling yourself, the surprising power of just holding a coffee cup, to the strategic ways to build a network by giving value first, and finally, that long game of consistent, focused content creation. It's clear his advice isn't just about the money, is it? It's really about personal transformation, strategic effort, and that constant iteration.
Absolutely. It's a really comprehensive framework he's built. It connects self-belief, how you communicate, who you connect with, and what you create, all as these interconnected pillars for success. And importantly, it emphasizes practice, those reps, and constant iteration over just relying on some innate talent. What he really seems to distill is that creating significant wealth today often comes down to mastering human connection and attention, especially in this noisy digital world.
So, thinking about all this, what does it actually mean for you listening right now? If you were to really embrace Martell's philosophy of reps equal results, what specific daily habit, or maybe just a 1% improvement, from any of these 4 skills, sales, communication, networking, content, what would you commit to starting today?
Yeah, and building on that, think about Martel's really provocative idea of dedicating a decade to one format, not just being consistent, but that deep, long-term mastery focus. What aspect of your current learning or your creative work might genuinely benefit from that kind of singular, unwavering commitment? And maybe more importantly, what's the very first tiny step you could take, maybe even this week, to start initiating that kind of sustained focus? Something to think about.